got your mask.
Okay, the meeting is live.
Okay, thank you. Welcome, everyone. We'd like to welcome you to our MAG Executive Council meeting. The date is October 22nd, 2020. The time is 7:00 p.m. This meeting is being held through a virtual Zoom meeting, and it's also live streamed through mountainland.org/live, so the public can attend. We welcome everyone. And do you want to go ahead and indicate again those that have been asked to be excused, please?
Celeste Johnson asked to be excused.
That's the only one that's contacted you.
Correct.
Okay, thank you. Okay, the first item on the agenda is an action item to approve the May 21st, 2020 minutes. Has everyone had a chance to read those? We'd be willing to take changes or a motion to approve those minutes.
This is Julie Fulmer. I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
This is Rod Mann. I will second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor? Aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstain? All right, thank you. Item number 2, public comment. You said that, Melanie, no one has submitted a public comment.
Correct. There was no public comment submitted today.
Are there any participants? I don't see anybody. I don't see anybody on. Any members of the public that might be on that would like to make a public comment? Okay, thank you. Item number 3, the annual audit report. This is an action item. Squire and Company, who's there to present for us from Squire and Company?
That would be me. I'm Dave Brown.
Hi, Dave.
How we
Glad to
doing
have you
tonight?
join us.
Good, good. Can everyone hear me?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. And I'm okay to proceed then?
Yep, go ahead.
Okay.
Do you need to post on the screen?
I believe everybody in their packet should have received a draft copy of the financial statements. So I wasn't planning to post anything.
Has everybody got those to refer to?
Yes.
Maybe Melanie, if you can take down the agenda that's there now to give us access to our laptop or our desktop, then we can pull up. I have it in the folder, the packet. I haven't printed it.
Would you like me to pull it up on the screen?
Yeah, maybe that'd be good.
I bet that'll work.
That'll work maybe better.
While she's doing that, yeah, just appreciate the opportunity to participate tonight. This is a little different than what we're used to, obviously. So
The sad thing is we're all getting used to it.
there you go. And I don't know if you've had other meetings as far as MAG Executive Council that have been virtual, or if this is your first.
I think we did the other one, didn't we?
Hey,
Anyway,
in May, it was virtual.
yeah.
Okay, all right. So you're experts now. All right. Well, I just wanted to take some time tonight, knowing that you've had you received the financial statement after those in your audit packet. Just wanted to take some time and just report on the services that we've provided this year in relation to the audit and the other things that we do for other entities as well. But first and foremost, our primary objective is to audit the financial statements and issue an opinion on those. That's what you see in front of you on screen is our auditor's report. The first little section of that just describes responsibilities as auditors that we have and what the responsibilities of management are. If you go to the next page, this is where we indicate our opinion. I'm happy to report from an opinion perspective that we're issuing what we call an unmodified opinion or a clean opinion. What that means kind of states there, it says basically that the financial statements present fairly in all material respects, the respective financial position of the governmental activities, the general fund, and the proprietary fund information of the association for the year ended June 30, 2020. So a positive outcome. An unmodified opinion is, the best grade we can give as auditors as it relates to reporting on the financial statements themselves. So a very positive outcome there. I want to talk just briefly about the other audits that we do before we kind of dig into the financial statements themselves. And we won't spend a lot of time where you've had an opportunity to look at those and see those in advance, unless there are questions. But we also perform what is called a federal programs audit, or a single audit. What we do is select major programs from the expenditures that you have throughout the year by CFDA number. Overall, MAG had federal expenditures of just over 6 million this past year. We're required to test some of those that we select from a risk perspective to be major programs. In that process, we select the major programs and then test those in accordance with the federal guidelines, which are known as uniform guidance. And those have several testing requirements that we go through, and ultimately we issue an opinion specific to compliance as well as internal controls and the things that we tested. As it relates to this year specifically, the programs we selected for testing were your highway planning, transportation funding, as well as your social services block grant monies. So as it relates to those, we're happy to report again that we found no findings or question costs or anything that we're required to report as such. So another positive outcome as it relates to those federal programs. We also look at internal controls and evaluate those. And again, we're happy to report there that we find no deficiencies in our testing and our evaluation of those. So another positive outcome. Thirdly, we do an audit in accordance with the state's audit guide and look at some specific things that they ask us to look at from a compliance perspective and issue our opinion with regard to that as well. Some of the areas that we look at and test, we look at your budgets, look for budgetary compliance, specific things there. We evaluate fund balance, some requirements that are there, open and public meetings. This year, there's a new requirement that I see is on your agenda tonight, which is the fraud risk assessment. The filling out of that and the presentation of that to the board. So you're fulfilling that requirement as you continue with your meeting tonight after I get finished. So that's good. As I mentioned, we look at compliance there. We evaluate internal controls specific to your state compliance. Happy to report no findings there and issue our opinion as an unmodified opinion, or an A grade again, that is applied with the compliance requirements that we tested. So again, another positive outcome. Any questions on any of that? If not, maybe before we start kind of drilling through the financial statement, did anybody have any specific questions related to the financials? If not, I'll just do a broad overview. We kind of talk about this each year, but the document overall is about 40 pages long. If you had limited time and couldn't read the whole thing, I would invite you and encourage you to read the management's discussion and analysis. This is kind of an executive summary, if you will, of the happenings of the association for the year ended June 30, 2020. So it's about 5 pages long, 4 or 5 pages long, in general. So, and it covers the details of some of the highlights, if you will, for the year for MAG specifically. Financial statements, like we've talked about in the past, you have your government-wide financial statements that are a presentation that's more of a private sector type presentation. And then you have your governmental fund financial statements, which are more of a budgetary basis. Specifically to the government-wide financial statements, those start on page 8 under the statement of net position. And then page 9 is the statement of activities. The primary difference between the government-wide statements and your fund financial statements are things that are more long-term in nature. So we're talking about capital assets, for instance. Those get recorded for the government-wide financial statements. They don't get reported or reflected on your fund financial statements. Another primary difference would be debt or long-term obligation type things that do get reported and reflected on the government-wide and wouldn't necessarily are not reflected in the fund financial statements. A neat thing that's kind of a bridge between the two is on page, let me find this real quick, is on page 11 of the financial statements. It's a reconciliation between the balance sheet of the governmental fund and the statement of net position. So you can see, like we talked, from a fund balance perspective, you're 2.5 million. You add capital assets to that, other obligations to arrive at net position for governmental activities of that 2.2 million. So those are your differences, if you will. I'd like to just focus for a minute on the fund financial statements, specifically page 10. This is the governmental fund balance sheet. This just indicates what your position was, if you will, as of June 30th. So you'll note there, you have assets, liabilities, and fund balances. Within the asset category, cash and investments, receivables, loans receivable, and prepaids, for total assets of almost 17 million in total. On the liability side, accrued wages, unearned revenue, and then fund balances as you see them there overall. Activity-wise, if we turn to page 12, this just says for the year, here was the activity of the association. So that's broken out, presenting the revenues and the expenditures to arrive at an ending fund balance. So overall, from a revenue perspective, 19.3 million in revenues from all those sources that are indicated there. Expenditure-wise, 19.5 in expenditures for the year, which results in a decrease of that $130,000 that you see there for the year. So, yeah, so that's the activity for the year for the association.
Dave, I have a question. When you
Yes.
when you go through the audit, do you look at the fund balances throughout the year or just the June 30th? In our city, and most cities are the same, there's quite a bit of variance in terms of fund balance and revenue and expenses. Our revenues are typically higher in February once we collect our most of our tax revenue from property tax, and then there are a couple low points during the year when we have debt obligations that we cover. So at the end, on our June 30th, it can look really good, but we have a month in some years when we're down to $300,000.
Yeah. And that's probably more of a focus on cash position or cash and investments position, I guess.
Yes.
From our perspective, we're evaluating that generally at year end and not so much from an audit perspective, at least each month of the year per se. But clearly you as an organization do look at that on a monthly or regular basis to know whether you have adequate cash resources at any given time.
Yeah, so we have been in a position before where we had to push payments off because we didn't have the cash that month to cover them. Thankfully, we're not there now, but it's happened before.
Yeah, yeah.
But our year-end stuff still looks okay, right?
Yes, it does. Sometimes you'll have big projects that, yeah, a big outflow is needed. A lot of times with those, you're looking at reimbursable expenses. So they're federal expenditures where you're going to pay the bill and then you have to wait to get reimbursed. And so there's a lag from a cash perspective between the time frame of when you write the check and when you get reimbursed. And so that's what makes those cash reserves important, is to be able to cover that gap, if you will. So I wanted real quick just to page 14, just as a presentation of the budgetary statement, budget to actual. You can see there what our budget was, original and final, and where we landed with respect to those budgets and the variances that are there. So overall, expenditures were pretty much as expected. Administrative side, what you have in that number this year that maybe wasn't budgeted per se is kind of two things. One, all of your capital improvements that you did with your building, the renovations and that throughout the year. Then also you'll remember last year when I attended your meeting, you were talking about changing your compensated absences benefit. That was changed. There was an impact to that during 2020 as a result of that change. And so that is reflected in what is shown there as administrative unallocated, part of that 431,000. So anyway, if you were wondering on that. So anyway, the rest of the report, you have the notes to the financial statements that just provide additional information to describe, the statements themselves. And in the very back, there are a few supplemental schedules that we won't take the time tonight to look at, but they're good information if you had time to look at those and evaluate those. So are there any questions?
Thank you, Dave. Any other questions, board?
If not, I just want to say thank you. Appreciate the help of all those that assist us in the process of performing our audit. This year we did that in person for the most part, but did some remotely as well. And so it was a little different this year, but we appreciated everybody's willingness to accommodate, be there and be available either via in person or remotely in some form. So appreciate Steve and his help and all those that are involved in helping us to get our work done. So thank you.
Okay, thank you, Dave.
Mhm.
If there's no more comments or questions, we'd be ready for a motion to approve or to accept our annual audit report.
I move that this is Rod Mann, I move that we accept the audit report as provided to us by our auditors.
This
Okay,
is
we have
Kim Carson, and I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any other discussions? See none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion passes. Item number 4 has been referred to in the report. We have the MAG fraud risk prevention process. Michelle.
Yes, I am just pulling up my presentation. Can everyone see that okay?
Yep.
Perfect. Okay, I will jump right in. As most of you are aware, the Office of the State Auditor, as mentioned as well during the previous report, has implemented an annual risk assessment. And so just briefly, they've developed a fraud risk assessment to help local government board members understand best practices in fraud detection and prevention. The best practices identified in the assessment are not required, but they are highly recommended by the Office of the State Auditor. This assessment is not to replace or duplicate the internal control assessment performed by our independent auditors as part of our financial statement audit. While they are both risk assessments, their methodologies and purposes are distinct. So what is required? Beginning in 2020, all local governments will complete the assessment internally, and then they will present to our governing board, which is why we're here tonight, before the end of 2020 fiscal year. So we have completed our assessment internally, and we would like to present that to you tonight. The Chief Administrative Officer and Chief Financial Officer must certify the results of the assessment, and then the assessment must be submitted to the office within 6 months after the end of the fiscal year. Let's see. And I am just going to briefly pull up. So we did complete internally our fraud risk assessment, and we scored low. So the lower points that you score is your higher risk of fraud, and the higher points you score, you are at a lower risk of fraud. So we scored 355. So we're just at the very cusp of being very low. So 316 to 355 was low. And so what I'm going to present next are 3 action items that came as a result of this fraud assessment. Let me just jump back over here. So after doing the fraud assessment, we would recommend that MAG take the following actions. We would like to disseminate a conflict of interest acknowledgement to staff and board members. The acknowledgement will set forth policy and procedures for reporting any conflicts of interest that may impact influential positions within MAG. We propose that these conflict of interest acknowledgements would be distributed and signed in January of 2021. Secondly, an implementation of an anonymous fraud reporting hotline and a fillable form on our website for staff or members of the general public to use. And we would implement measures to ensure the privacy of reporting individuals. And I am happy to report that all of those are set up and ready to go. And lastly, the addition of a financial expert to our steering committee to create an audit committee. We are hopeful that a financial expert from either a local city in our region or a county could serve as a second check to review our financial statements as part of this proposed audit committee. Are there any questions? No?
Yes, one right here. How much will that improve our score? We accomplish all of those 3 things. Where will that put us in the next time around?
Excellent question. Let me, where'd it go? Here we go. It's coming up here. Okay, so we would get an additional 20 points for the conflict of interest. Let's see. So that would put us into the very low risk category. So some things are scored, and then some things are more recommendations that aren't scored. So if we implement the conflict of interest, those would put us into the very low category. One of the things that we did score that because we have it ready to go and it's implemented already is that fraud hotline. So we did score as a yes there, right here at this fraud hotline. Any other questions?
There aren't any other asking to kind of follow up on Councilman Wright's question. I'm assuming all those other yeses would remain a yes. There are things that we ongoing and would continue to do so they wouldn't lower our score.
Yes, correct. We would continue to do all of those things and then just add these 3 recommendations.
Well, there's one, that we could easily do, or relatively easily do, and that's the each of us go through the state training online, and that's another 20 points.
Yeah, that was a no.
Yeah.
Yep, we can do that. And I wonder, are a lot of you already doing that as part of your
Yes.
positions? Yeah, yep. So that would be another 20 points. So that would put us in the very, very low category.
But does that count, the training we've done within the city, does that count for this as well?
Yes, it should be the same training because we all do the same fraud risk assessment.
Correct. Yeah. If you don't have to do it twice. If you've already done it for your local community, it would count.
Maybe send out a link to everybody. So if they haven't, they can get online and do it.
Yep.
And those that have can reply back and get a roll of those that have and where you're at.
And we could add that as the number 4 recommended action as well.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions or discussion, council or board on the fraud risk prevention process? Seeing none, we would accept a motion.
Mayor Hunsaker, Santaquin. I move that MAG implement the fraud risk prevention safeguards as presented.
I'll second that.
Did we want to include the 4th stipulation?
Including the 4th stipulation.
Okay, we have a motion, and who was that made the second?
That was Wendy Prey.
Wendy Prey. Okay, any other discussion? See none, all those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Next item also, Michelle, is action on the longevity bonus.
All right.
Michelle.
Thank you. If you'll recall, when we met last May, you all approved MAG's most recent budget. In that budget, there was a 2% COLA and a 2% merit, but due to COVID, it was decided that the COLA and the merit would not be implemented because of the uncertainty of COVID on our budget. Also in the budget was a 1% longevity. So we take 1% of our salary budget and distribute it to MAG staff based on longevity. And we typically do this around Thanksgiving time. It's kind of a holiday bonus, if you will. When we met in May, it was a recommendation by this body to hold off until October to make that decision on our longevity so we can reassess where MAG was on their budget. So this is an update on where we are on our budget. The CARES Act had brought a lot of extra dollars flowing into MAG. In the aging department, just over $1.6 million in different programs serving the clients that are eligible for some of the aging population. And Heidi, feel free to jump in, but a lot of that was used for meals and high-risk individuals and people with disabilities. In the Community and Economic Development Department, the regular CDBG and EDA programs, which are here in the dark blue, those all received additional funding over and above our regular annual allocation. And then the local governments, all 3 counties, and then a new announcement that's coming, Park City, that received their local government CARES Act funding, have contracted with MAG to administer some economic support programs. And so all of those total in the Community and Economic Development Department, just over $28 million. So in total, MAG has had an increase of $29.6 million coming through MAG, and all of this is flowing through our books. So we have been very busy, and we have enjoyed working and serving the communities with these extra funds. So it would be our hope that we could have the Executive Council approve that longevity bonus to reward the staff for all of their extra work this year. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Just one comment on this, and again, commend the staff, the extra work they've done. Just one program I'm aware, the Small Cities CDBG. I know when we got our first round of funding, MAG, we had figured out how to spend it, and had it approved, and pretty well the money on the way to those small businesses and whatnot that were eligible for that program that we put in place. We had that going before most of the other area agencies even had a plan on how to spend it. So I know that's just one area, and I'm pretty certain that the other areas have been just the same, as I've had contact and been aware of different things they're doing. So I think this is well deserved.
Thank you.
I do too, and I would move that we accept the, or implement the 1% longevity bonus for MAG staff. Mayor Mann.
Thank you,
is
Mayor.
Mayor. This is Mayor Larson. I'll second the motion.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Item 6, County Cares
Aye.
Program. Excuse me. County Cares Program update. Michelle?
Okay, that's me again. My last item on the agenda. Before I start, so I'm going to highlight those 4 jurisdiction county care program and now Park City as well. But before I start, I really want to make sure that you all know that MAG has been administering these funds, but all of the decision making has been at the local level. There's been local committees and local staff deciding what small businesses and nonprofits actually get the awards, what the priorities are in each of the local CARES programs. MAG's role has really been on the administrative side, helping set up the applications, making sure they're eligible, cutting the checks, really just assisting the county and then soon to be Park City getting the money out the door as fast as possible. But all decisions were locally decided. So just briefly, I'll just touch on all 4. Summit County Cares was a $1 million program. In round 1, 89 businesses received $557,000. And over here, you'll see this chart. You can see awards by industry, and it's a little bit different in each region, but I think it reflects the regions. Those small business grants in round 1 ranged from $2,500 to $10,000, and 24 nonprofits received a total of $135,200. And those awards ranged from $4,000 to $11,200. And then round 2 is currently open, and they are accepting applications from both nonprofits and small businesses until October 26th. And a total of $195,500 is available for small businesses, and $36,000 is available for nonprofits. Any questions about Summit County Cares? And just to clarify, this is different than the small cities CDBG CV money. This is exclusively from Summit County Cares local government money. Okay, I'll move on. Wasatch County Cares, $974,000 went to 43 small businesses up in Wasatch County, and the award ranges were from $3,500 to $50,000. And again, you can see the awards by industry. Utah County Cares is a $20 million program. In round 1, 774 businesses received approximately $8.9 million with a grant award of between $1,000 and $20,000. And again, you can see awards by industry. Additionally, $5 million was distributed to 53 nonprofits, and those awards ranged from $4,500 to $1 million. After round 1, we had approximately just over $6 million left. And so we are currently accepting small business applications and nonprofit applications until October 30th. And more detailed information, there's actually a website, www.ucgrants.org, that has more detailed information, and that will close October 30th. And then lastly, within the last week, Park City reached out to us. They have about $2.9 million, and the details are not solidified as of this meeting, but we anticipate approximately $2.9 million going towards small business grants, modeled after the other programs that we've run for the counties. And I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions? I think it's great the way that we've got the money out and assisted a lot of different areas. It's we've made good use of the money that's come from the federal program. So
This is Kim Carson from Summit County. And I just want to say, you know, we don't have the type of expertise that MAG has on staff. So I just want to give a huge thanks to all the staff that were involved in the process. And we were able to get money quickly out to these small businesses and nonprofits that desperately needed it.
thank you, Kim. Yeah, good comment. Any other comment?
This is Mayor Mann. Did we have to hire any temporary help to make this work, or were we able to do it with existing staff?
Great question. So the timing was interesting. Right before COVID hit, I was appointed deputy director and I moved out of the community and economic development department. And so they had refilled those positions. So during this time, I've moved back heavily to help implement these programs. We also hired 2 interns. And then for Utah County, we have had a temp just for round 2 because we learned some lessons with round 1. But that's been the staffing situation.
So if something like this happens again, you have a template now set up, and are you documenting that? So if it gets asked again to do these kind of things, you'll know exactly what to do.
Absolutely. It's all of the applications are an online platform that we're using. And then every time we do a new program, we do learn lessons. And then on the occasions we have a round 2, we do tweak a little bit to make it smoother. And if there is a second CARES Act, we don't know what's going to happen. We have a lot of lessons learned that we would certainly implement in a round 3 or 4.
Maybe if I could just add an additional point to that. With the CARES Act funding, we wanted to try and get as much as that out to the businesses that we could. And so we had some, it's rainy day fund reserve account funding that we used for some of the administrative overhead on this so that more of that CARES Act funding could go out to the communities. So it's part of the your local contribution to MAG that we've had, that then we were able to use that to fund some of the administrative costs and have more of the money go out to the businesses.
Thank you.
Okay, any other comments? Thank you for the comments and the input. Item number 7, MAG department and budget updates. I guess first is Heidi with Aging and Family Services.
Was that a motion by a dog?
Hey Heidi, you're muted.
Is that better? There we go.
That's better. There we go.
Okay, let's start again. I appreciate the opportunity to meet with you, talk with you a little bit about the Aging and Family Services budget and some of the activities that we have going. We'll start off with just a pie chart that kind of breaks down the funding for the department, where we are right now for this year. Largest piece of that is for the nutrition program that includes both home delivered and senior center meals. In addition to that, I wanted to point out the senior contributions of $266,000. That is an estimated number as a contribution from seniors who are receiving those meals. And we expect that will be higher by the end of this year. But at that amount represents about 13.5% in additional funding to support the nutrition program. So all of those dollars going back into nutrition. Second largest piece on there is support services. That actually includes a group of programs, transportation, fraud prevention, Medicare counseling, other programs are all included in that supportive services. And then I wanted to draw attention at the very top of the graph to the $80,000 in local funding that each of the jurisdictions is giving to MAG for aging services specifically. We sincerely appreciate that and will target that money this year towards meals.
Heidi, do we track the volunteer hours associated with some of these services?
Absolutely. And I can talk just a little bit more about that. The largest group of volunteers we have is in our home delivered meals program. Right now, as of today, we have 426 volunteers serving in that department. They all give in the 52 volunteer routes we have now, about an hour a day, 5 days a week. We also have the retired and senior volunteer program that provides a tremendous number of volunteer hours in providing transportation, home delivered meal delivery as well, but also has a great focus in schools. And they keep track of all of the hours that they do. They annually report approximately 200,000 hours of volunteer delivery in the 3 counties.
Now, do we report that somewhere?
Pardon? I'm so sorry.
Do we report that somewhere? Did we share that somehow, some way?
Volunteer hours are reported to the federal government portion that oversees the senior programs. Those are just being changed now, so the name is not Senior Core Programs anymore, but we do report all of our volunteer hours there, and we also report them to the state of Utah, the Volunteer Utah Serves organization for Utah.
Heidi, are those just reported as hours, or is there a cost applied to that, like a cost per hour? So you know basically what kind of economic benefit that is.
There's a national organization that estimates the value of volunteer hours in each state. In Utah, the last number was approximately $24 per hour for each volunteer hour. So it's a significant amount. For our home delivered meals program, I think the benefit to us is almost $35 an hour for each hour that is contributed by community volunteers. A huge savings.
That's awesome. Yeah.
Yeah. We've been lucky. Other areas in the state have not been able to maintain their volunteer force during the COVID pandemic. And we have been able to maintain and grow our force. So that's been amazing and a tribute to the people in our region. This graph for home delivered meals shows just before the pandemic in February and goes through the end of September. We are increased by about 100 clients, but you can see that that is a significant increase in the number of meals that are being delivered. In Utah County, we have added 1 route to our delivery system to our senior centers, and we have increased the number of volunteer routes, and we have increased the number of meals being delivered on each route in order to help us meet the need. In Summit County, we were able to, for the first time, establish 2 volunteer routes in Park City, and that is helping us in that area. The spike that you see in April is due to, that was just the first month of the pandemic, started on the 13th when all the senior centers closed of March. And so all of MAG staff contacted each client that was receiving home delivered meals. We didn't know how long the pandemic would last. We also didn't know that we wanted to be sure that if there was any failure in our delivery system, that people's needs were being met. So we delivered based on needs, shelf-stable meals, frozen meals. Those are all included in that count in April. And we continue to provide those as needed on a case-by-case basis. This next graph gives you an indication of the growth in our senior center meals. These meals are being picked up at each of the senior centers. And so very first, I just want to give you my deepest thanks and gratitude to the jurisdictions who are supporting senior center pickup meals. They have provided staff from other departments. They've really gone out of their way to serve seniors at each of these locations. Although we had an initial dip, you can see that over time, meals being picked up at senior centers has continued to grow. And again, while we have maybe only 100 more clients, numbers of meals has increased significantly. Part of the reason for that is many seniors, when the senior centers were open, would maybe only attend the senior center 1 or 2 days a week. But we're finding that people who are picking these meals up need them every day during this crisis. I wanted to also give recognition to our drivers. Since the crisis began, they have been on the roads delivering meals every single day. And so that's a huge tribute to them. They haven't been able to take any time off. They haven't been able to work from home. They've been out on the out delivering. And so we really want to recognize their effort in meeting increased demand and in just being there every single day. Over the last couple of weeks or months, the department has been looking at focus areas. We provide, as you can see on the left, we provide a lot of services and programs that throughout the department. And in order to provide us with a good framework moving forward, we looked at categorizing those into 5 focus areas. Beginning with health and wellness, that includes meal delivery, health promotion activities, health fair. In September, we coordinated with all of the senior centers to ensure that they had a drive-up flu shot opportunity for those that were receiving meals. So we do a lot of activities in that category. Community living is next. And that includes our in-home services and case management for those who are trying to live independently at home. It also includes our heat program and weatherization assistance. Part of our commitment to, and one of our goals is to help seniors and families live well within the communities. And these programs all go to support that. Education is a growing effort for us. It is a way for us to deliver more service and to serve a broader segment of the population. We are increasing the number of classes and courses that we are providing in this category. We also sponsor conferences. We have some virtual support groups that we have initiated in the last few months, and other activities that fall under this education category. Resources has always been a core component of Aging and Family Services, an effort to provide really good, solid resources, information, and referral to individuals and families. And advocacy is our effort to raise awareness of needs, to provide education on elder justice, fraud, abuse, and exploitation of older adults. It also includes our ombudsman activity to ensure that rights are being respected for older adults who are living in long-term care facilities, and many other activities and under the category. And then the arrows within each of these circles demonstrate the connectivity of all of these areas of emphasis. So for example, one of our core outcomes for the department is to improve the safety and well-being of individuals and families in the community. And in each one of these categories, we are doing something to address safety and wellness at home. This next slide will give you an overview of services provided over the last full 12-month period ending June 30th, so our last fiscal year. Again, home delivered and congregate meals is significantly higher over that 12-month period due to increased demand from COVID. We have served 317 clients in our in-home programs, and behind that number is a host of in-home services that are being provided and contact and benefit for families and caregivers as well. Our HEAT program is transitioning into a year-round program. This is an unduplicated number, but in this year we were able to provide COVID benefit to many of our households. And we are seeing in the last few months a significant increase in new clients coming forward for HEAT benefit. As you may know, the Dominion and Rocky Mountain Power both they were suspending payments for many individuals. Rocky Mountain Power recently has begun sending out shutoff notices, and so we're seeing a significant increase in new individuals due to unemployment applying for that. And our HEAT program is in the process of transitioning into a year-round program that will start this year. Under other activities, I just wanted to follow up on COVID activities. In addition to contacting home-delivered meal clients, we also reached out to each of our in-home clients or their families on a weekly basis, sometimes more often than that. They were at home, alone, nervous, worried. That represents about 1,200 calls a week for those clients. We distributed 5,500 masks that were received from the state of Utah, and about 3,600 shelf-stable meals, frozen meals. We did Kleenex, toilet paper, hand sanitizer, cleaning supplies, all sorts of things to help seniors meet their basic needs. Wanted to let you know about our 15th annual Caregiver Conference and our first conference that will be virtual. It is planned for Thursday, November 5th. The link at the bottom will take you to the agenda and an opportunity for registration. As of today, we had more than 100 individuals who are registered for this event, all the way from Colorado to St. George, and we have some in Logan. So it is available to all 3 counties. I hope that some of you have seen signs in your jurisdictions. We put out a lot of signs that are in our yard signs, and we are advertising it in a number of different ways. So hope that we have an outstanding list of speakers, 2 tracks that will be offered that will be going concurrently. You can jump in and out of sessions. We have an opening and a closing keynote speaker as well. So it should be a really great event. And then other activities for the department that are either new or unusual. Michelle mentioned that we're providing services to high-risk populations and meals to eligible clients through the DSPD program that is for disabled persons with disabilities. We are providing meals to DSPD for high-risk populations. This could be high risk due to age or due to a medical issue such as asthma, heart issues, things like that. So of any age, we're providing meals, transportation, it could be delivery of groceries. We have provided utility assistance, temporary housing. So we're providing whatever is needed. The caveat in the high-risk population group is that we don't duplicate services that could be provided by another funding source. So for example, rental assistance is available in another through another agency, and so we are not trying to duplicate their efforts. These are two separate contracts we've received through the Department of Human Resources using State of Utah CARES money, and they are both active through the end of December of this year. Workshops, we have a new workshop that we've just started. The Stress Busters workshop is 9 weeks. It is online and we're learning as we go, but we have great participation. People are interested. This is focused on caregivers and really offers some really good education and tips about the stress that comes with being a caregiver, especially in these times. We also have been doing our dealing with dementia workshops on an ongoing basis due to demand. And last week, we just held our first virtual dealing with dementia workshop. We're serving about 10 to 16 individuals at a time for those classes. We've started 2 virtual caregiver support groups that includes participation from all 3 counties. And each time we hold one of those, we have them on Tuesday and Thursday. We have new members, and it's really been great and heartwarming to hear their stories and to provide support. And then we've received some additional funding that we'll be using to initiate a transportation voucher program in all 3 counties. Hope that that will get started in the next few months. And then in November, we will start our first ever senior health challenge. And so hope that this will be a positive thing. It is a challenge to encourage individuals 50 years of age and older, either to compete with themselves or others by logging their time spent in physical activities. We have a very inclusive list of activities that they can really do anything. Pacing back and forth. I do a lot of that in my house, but just anything that they can do to stay active. We're trying to promote movement and engagement and something fun. And the person who has the highest number of, who scores the highest in each county will each receive a Fitbit watch as their recognition. So this should be a really fun event, and we're looking forward to it. And we'll be getting a lot of word out about that soon. And that's it for us. Any questions, anything I can answer or respond to? Well, thank you guys again for your support and your participation. And as you know, we are in a period of increased COVID cases, and we are seeing an increase of need in delivery, and just want to assure you that we are committed and ready to serve more people and to meet the meal delivery needs as those continue to climb over the next few months. So thank you, and everyone stay well.
Thank you, Heidi. Thanks for a great report, and express to your staff the great programs you've got going and all the wonderful things you continually do. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Community and Economic Development Report, Jessica.
All right, let me get this started. There we go. Well, thank you for the opportunity to talk to you about what we've been doing in community and economic development. In addition to the CARES programs that Michelle touched on earlier, we've got some of our regular programs and then additional COVID-related things. So I'll be reviewing our community development block grant programs for Utah County, Lehigh City, and then Wasatch and Summit through the State Small Cities program. So we've got our regular CDBG programs, and then each of those also received COVID-related funding referred to as CDBG CV. And then I'll also touch on what's new with our Economic Development District, and then an update on our revolving loan fund. So just a reminder of the CDBG program, the funding comes through the Housing Department, the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, and it flows to these entitlement areas, Lehigh City and Utah County, and then through the state of Utah to our region here at MAG. And then you'll see in the red circles, those are the decision-making boards that oversee these programs, and then MAG administers those. And often we administer those through subgrants to subrecipients. I'll start with Utah County CDBG and what we've got coming up for our new FY21 cycle. Although that funding won't be available until July of next year, we do start the cycle in October. So we're estimated to receive about $1.4 million for eligible Utah County jurisdictions and nonprofits for community and economic development projects. As I mentioned, we kicked off that cycle already. We held joint how to apply workshops on October 8th and 13th. Those were held in conjunction with Provo City and Orem City. We've been working on a collaborative process for our nonprofit subgrants to stretch our dollar further and have a more regional impact. And so we held those workshops earlier. And then we also held Utah County specific workshops on the 15th. So just as a reminder, those pre-applications are due for that program on December 4th, and then final applications on February 12th. Utah County also received through a couple rounds of CARES funding, $1.4 million in the CDBG CV funding to prevent, prepare for, and respond to COVID-19. As of right now, $58,000 of that has already been allocated to nonprofit organizations to allow them to continue services while accommodating social distancing and remote services. And those went to really high need things like the Center for Women and Children in Crisis, the food bank, and then to a mental health service provider to allow them to provide services remotely. We have been working with the County Commission, our area review committee over the Utah County program, and then the nonprofit organizations to identify the needs and then to match them with the right funding source. The CDBG CV grant, we have a 6-year timeline for spending these funds, and so it's much longer than some of these other local government CARES funds, and so we're trying to match the need with the right funding source and the right timeline. And so I do anticipate that in the next year or two, as other resources are diminished, that these CDBG CV funds will be an important piece of the puzzle as impacts of COVID are continued to be felt. And then we have the Lehigh CDBG program, sort of the same timeline. That's going to be an estimated $227,000 for the upcoming program year. And then Lehigh City received the $283,000 in the CDBG CV funding for COVID-related projects. And we are working with the mayor and the city staff to develop projects and identify needs for the regular program and for the CDBG CV program as well. So we're working closely with them. And then the Wasatch and Summit State Small Cities program that we estimate just under $600,000 for the upcoming program year. And that How to Apply workshop is this Monday at 6 p.m. And those applications, as always, are due January 31st. So that's the regular CDBG program cycle happening in Wasatch and Summit counties. As mentioned, Wasatch and Summit very quickly made decisions about their COVID-19 funds. They received that $975,000 during the 2 rounds that they awarded to small businesses. This is separate from their CARES funding. This is their CDBG CV, so they were able to help businesses through a couple of programs. And about 155 businesses received grants through that. Those range from $5,000 to $30,000. And you can see these thank you notes. One of the perks of being the point of contact for these businesses is that we get to receive all the thank you letters. But we were, grateful to be part of the process and to work with the local decision makers who set priorities and made those decisions to support businesses. So I just wanted to share some of the thanks that we've gotten, and business owners have reached out and said it's been a real lifeline for them in keeping their businesses open during this time. So, and then they also awarded $85,000 to nonprofits, and that was to address food insecurities during COVID while things were shut down. And then we do anticipate the Summit in Wasatch will probably receive a third round of $250,000. We don't have that finalized yet, but we do anticipate that to be coming our way. And then I also wanted to share what's going on with our Mountainland Economic Development District. We received a CARES Act grant through the Federal Economic Development Administration. And that was just over $390,000 for short and long-term economic development, recovery planning, and coordination. And there were, it was a set scope of work from the EDA that we're able to implement at the local level. And that includes the first item, development of an economic recovery plan, and that's focused on recovery and resiliency, consistent with our region's comprehensive economic development strategy, our 5-year strategy. And so we are currently in the RFQ process for that right now to hire a consultant to help us with that. We do anticipate a start date of probably late November or early December. That plan will serve as a guide for community leaders and elected officials, policymakers, and it will include evaluation of economic impacts due to COVID, strategies for mitigation, and then a framework for economic recovery for the region. And that will be broken down by county. So they will address Summit, Wasatch, and Utah counties individually because the impacts and needs will probably be pretty different by region. And we may have an option to include city-specific portions of the plan as well if cities are interested in that. The second piece of the scope of work there is hiring of a full-time regional disaster recovery coordinator. That's a 2-year position, and that is to serve the communities and local governments across the district. We have hired him, Jack Davis. Part of the planning process will be, of course, stakeholder engagement. And so Jack will be working with the consultant to develop that plan and then also to reach out to our stakeholders to get input during that process. So you probably will get contact from Jack in the coming months as we develop that, and would love your input into that. So we've hired that recovery coordinator. As I said, they'll work closely with those consultants and stakeholders. They'll also be tasked with implementing the items in the plan listed for mitigation and recovery. And then he'll also be assisting in any local and state and federally led coronavirus recovery planning and recovery efforts. And then he'll also be a resource for our local communities to help you identify grant eligible projects and resources for local communities to make sure that you are able to take advantage of any funding and resources out there that could support your community. So he is a resource for you there. And then in our district, we're also picking up our regional roundtable, economic development roundtables. Those were on pause just for a minute while we were kind of figuring out what was happening with COVID and how we would function in this new environment. So we are going to pick those back up, and we will be focusing in the short term, and our immediate focus being on regional COVID recovery. So we want to continue our role as facilitators in the region to bring together economic development professionals and all those involved in increasing economic opportunity across the region. So. And then lastly, just an update on our revolving loan fund. At present, we are servicing 16 loans, and those loans, loan total balance is $457,000, and we have about $400,000 available to loan. Again, at the start of the pandemic, the committee decided to take a pause on making loans. It wasn't the right program to help businesses survive COVID, but our board is now ready to begin making loans to help businesses that are ready to grow. So we are now accepting applications and looking to make loans in the community. I just wanted to highlight one of those examples, businesses that have really adapted and are thriving in this new environment. That's 10 Sisters Handicraft here. You can see Carmen, the founder and owner of that company. They received a loan through our program in 2017 of $50,000. They have a product and a technique for quilt piecing. And you can see in that background there, she's got a nice quilt. So they sell a product and they do lots of classes and education. And we just met with her this week. She's applying for a second loan to support growth of her company, where they had predominantly done a lot of trade shows and in-person education as their main source of income. They have really pivoted and moved to online ways to connect with their customers and their wholesale buyers, and are really flourishing in this new environment and have gotten really creative and worked closely with their customers to keep things going and provide a more consistent sales base as opposed to their sort of seasonal method before. So these are some of the businesses we've been able to assist and are looking forward to assisting as they grow with these new opportunities and challenges of COVID for sure. And that's it for our department. Can I answer any questions?
Thank you, Jessica. Great report. Again, board, any questions?
I just want to thank Jessica again for helping us with those CDBG grants and helping us get that turned around so quickly to help Summit and Wasatch counties.
Thank you. Yeah, our staff has really appreciated the opportunity to be involved. It's been a really fulfilling work, challenging, but really great to be involved with. So thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, next is regional transportation planning with the world famous one and only Sean Seeger. Sean, you're on.
Thank you, Kendall. Great to see everyone. I can't wait till we can be together in person again. Hopefully early next year is what my hopes are. Hey, we've been talking a lot about money tonight and increases in funding. And I'll tell you, on the transportation side, we have not seen any increases yet with either federal funding or state funding. In fact, the federal funding bill called the FAST Act, it expired on September 30th. Congress gave it a 1-year extension. And so these are usually 5, 6, 7-year bills. And there's a lot of rumor about, going big, increasing it 25%, something like that. Depends on how bad this pandemic recovery is going to be. So you're going to see transportation funding probably kick in about a year or so is what we suspect. At the state level, UDOT, or the legislature that is, this last session decided to hold their allocation of TIF funds. And so what happened, that's about $600 million that typically UDOT would program. And what happened is that was right at the start of the pandemic, if you recall. Legislative session was ending and no one knew what was going to happen. And so what that meant is that UDOT's programmed out about 4 to 5 years, just meant that they did not program out the 5th or the 6th year. So a lot of people are anticipating a really big move this year by the legislature and by UDOT to program 2 years worth of TIF funding, which would be 1.2 billion, something like that. Then there's a lot of rumor about bonding and that this is a great time to bond and that we have a lot of infrastructure needs and we need to put people back to work. So I think interest rate right now, when I was listening to the UDOT meeting last Friday, was 0.79% is what they were borrowing money for through the state's loan fund. So we could see something really big at the state level as well, but all these monies have not been released yet. Locally, we're hearing Utah County sales tax is up about 10%. And of course, Wasatch and Summit sales tax down because of the tourism-based economics that exist in Wasatch and Summit. Real briefly, give you an update as to where we're at. I'm gonna go through some numbers real briefly. I'll try to keep my presentation as short as possible tonight, recognizing that we're getting on in time here. And We have the what we call the MPO budget. That's about a $2 million staff fund. We're tracking at 23% spent year to date. We're 1 quarter through our fiscal year right now. This is based off of September 30th financial reports. The RPO program that we operate up in Wasatch County, we're about 25% spent through this year as well, through this time. That budget increased about $25,000 this year because we hired Don Taylor as a Wasatch County trail planner. Don's working in concert with some connections into Summit County and all the trails that exist in Wasatch down to Utah County. So we're excited to have Don on board this year. Local planning assistance, we typically flex some of this money over into projects. In fact, we plan on flexing some of this already with a couple projects in mind. We've spent 12% of that so far. And then strategic plan funding. This is our legislative or lobbying efforts, as well as paying for our executive director and Deputy Director Michelle to engage in activities that we cannot spend state or federal funds on. This lobbying effort, we've spent 27% of that so far, but we have some pass-through funds associated with that. We hired a new lobbyist this year, a new lobbying team, and excited to get working with Dave Stewart and his group, as well with Shane Marshall. So overall, we're tracking about 25% of the budget year. Everything looks good from that perspective. I'm just going to go through a couple highlights. This was sent out in advance. Hopefully you had if you have any questions, you can refer to this. I'm not going to go through and list these, just going to tell you that we've got about $1.5 million in transportation studies right now that we're either managing or tracking. We're doing a huge investment in Utah County right now with transit facilities. We're doing all the environmental studies to get those ready for funding, anticipating this federal investment and a state investment. We're looking at commuter rail south from Provo down to Payson or Santaquin. We're looking at another bus rapid transit system on State Street from Provo all the way to Lehigh. And then we're also looking at a light rail system that would go from Lehigh up to the Draper station or up to the Draper Frontrunner station. So massive studies underway. We're looking at a bridge crossing across Utah Lake potentially called the North Shore Study. So, and then there's a lot of little things that are going on as well. Strategic planning, I touched on that real briefly, that we anticipate this to be a big year with a potential bond. And so we want to be prepared to have that representation at the state level. We also have the UDOT exchange program. This is quite unique in that most MPOs do not do this, but our local governments have asked us to take our federal funds, which are about $12 million per year, and exchange them for state funds. So we give the UDOT $1, UDOT gives us back 85 cents on that dollar. And by doing that, then our local governments do not have to conform to a lot of the federal requirements that are burdensome. Things like Davis-Bacon wage tracking, Buy America Steel requirements, some of the burdensome environmental requirements that put small projects, really stress out small projects. So we're happy to continue that program with UDOT. Really grateful to UDOT to make that happen for us. Local planning assistance, talked about this real briefly. In fact, we plan on doing some more of this in Wasatch County, working with Councilmember Crittenden and Chair Good, talking about affordable housing plan with Mayor Potter and Mayor Johnson, trying to figure that out, and going to do a report on that, I think, next week to interlocal group, Kendall. So look forward to that. Also, doing a lot of general plan work in some of these communities with Bob Allen, providing that effort. And then the RPO organization, I talked about that real briefly in Wasatch County, continuing to do some of the plan coordination between UDOT and Wasatch County. And that's a real brief overview. Can I take any questions or comments on what I've talked about?
Thank you, Sean. And once again, we appreciate your work and your team and all you do.
Thank you, Kendall.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, that brings us to the last item on the agenda, unless there's other business. And this is just, we wanted to talk to you as I visited with Melanie as we look forward to our Executive Council Christmas social that we have every year and enjoy. I guess the first question is, with COVID and all of this, do we want to go ahead with this, or what's your preferences? We have kind of tentatively scheduled so that we could get it on in the schedule. We've tentatively scheduled December 14th, which is a Monday, at Soldier Hollow, the restaurant there. And I have got entertainment tentative lined up. Of course, we're looking in December. We don't know what the situation will be right now. Right now, we're both Utah, Wasatch, and I believe Summit County. Summit County, did you go on to the high transmission level today too?
Yes, we did.
So all three of us are in the high. Who knows what that'll be in December? I visited with Randall Probst, our health director, and asked him, given the conditions, assuming the conditions were the same in December as they are now, would this be a permitted activity? And he says, under the guidelines, restaurants, if they do the social distancing and the things they do, probably would work out. So it's something that we could do if we wanted to, probably. Who knows, the conditions could change between now and then and get worse. We all hope not. So anyway, any input from you, board? Do we want to go ahead with this? Do you think this year with COVID that we say, no, maybe not, or what's your thoughts?
Mr. Mayor, right, I'd say if it's possible, we do it. We can't stop living.
Okay,
I
thank
agree.
you.
I agree. My only request would be that the band not yell at the audience and say, I was at the table that they yipped at last time at Soldier Hollow.
I remember that. No, the entertainment I've talked to, how many of you enjoy cowboy poetry? If you've ever heard Jeff Carson, I've lined up Jeff Carson, who's a delightful cowboy poet, does a great job.
I like it.
That's great.
I think it'd be great.
Let's do it.
Okay. I will, any other thoughts? Anybody say nay?
This is Kim Carson from Summit County. I just think it's too risky. We're trying to get a ski season in, and I just don't see how a restaurant, even if they were under high, you still have to have people seated 6 feet apart, family unit. So you'd have a couple of 6 feet.
As I visited with him prior to see if he was even doing it, he's right now has his regular Christmas schedule. He does a lot of deals. So he's speaking with Randall. He's one that accommodates pretty good. So I think it is as good as any.
I mean, this is the exact kind of event where we're seeing outbreaks and super spreader events. And personally, I think it's irresponsible, but everybody can make their own choice.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments? Okay, I will get in touch with Melanie on Monday, and we'll see where we're at with that. I think she's got it tentatively scheduled, and we'll find out. I would suppose find out when our drop dead date is to cancel if conditions seem to warrant otherwise. But otherwise, I think we'll go ahead with it based on your comments. So if you have any other comments you'd like to make by mail, you can email me and get them to me by Monday so we can put that into the decision. Any other business from anyone? A reminder, our next meeting is February 24th. Location is yet to be determined. But with that given, we're ready for a motion to adjourn.
I'll make that
This is Mayor
motion.
Richens.
Okay, is that a motion?
Second.
Yes, that's a motion.
Okay, we have a second from Mayor Leifson. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Thank you all for your attendance tonight.
Thank you.
Stay safe.
Thank you, everyone.
See ya.